Manchester United have signed Sekou Kone for a fee in the region of £1 million plus add-ons, which alongside the signing of obi-martin, initially on a free but likely with compensation between £1 to £1.5 million, gives United two huge talents who aren't just there to sit in the under-21s, but in the next 2, maybe 3 years, should be first team players for United. But this raises more questions. First of all, how good are Sekou Kone and obi-martin? Why am I saying 2 to 3 years as a time period for them to develop into first team players? 3, could they potentially develop into first team players this season? And also, how should Manchester United go about developing both players? And finally, how in the future could Manchester United use a multi-club model like Chelsea and Manchester City in order to develop young players like these two? So we'll start off by analysing both players, and I have got a whole 10-minute video on obi-martin, so I'll leave that linked in the description. I won't go into too much detail. But in regards to Sekou Kone, what type of central midfielder is he? And most importantly, how good is he? Well, Kone is extremely raw, which of course is expected because he's not even played in Europe yet, and so that does have to be factored in. However, watching him play, particularly for the Mali youth team, you can see he's a level above everyone else on the pitch, both in and out of possession, and I think Kone ticks all of the boxes you'd want from a modern day central midfielder, primarily because of how varied his skill set is. He's about 5'9" in height, but he does have quite a slender build, which is probably the main area on first glance that you would say he needs to improve, because physicality is hugely important in the Premier League, but he is only 18 and he does have that athleticism needed to become a real powerhouse in the centre of the pitch once he develops that upper body strength. Now the obvious comparison is going to be to Kante, and stylistically there are similar traits between the two. Kone does have that natural ability to read the game, wherefrom he's able to position himself effectively to make an interception, cut off a passing lane completely, or jump out assertively to put in a standing or sliding tackle. He doesn't go to ground often, only when it's absolutely necessary, which I think is actually a very good attribute for a young central midfielder to have. As if there's one criticism that could be levelled at both Casemiro and Agate, it would be their rashness when it comes to diving into challenges, which can look spectacular when the challenge does come off, but if not timed perfectly, it can do more harm than good. Kone from a defensive point of view is actually very composed, but he still has the necessary aggression and tenacity to be more than capable of playing either in a double or a single pivot position, which I think is another crucial asset for young central midfielders to have, as if you have a central midfielder who can't switch between a single or a double pivot effectively, it will limit your team's ability to transition between shapes in possession. But Kone isn't solely a ball winner, but before I come on to that, if you want to check out any of the new season jerseys, go over to Jersey FIFA. They've also got retro club and international shirts as well. If you use code Atlantis at checkout, you'll get a discount. A link will be in my Instagram bio, which I will leave linked in the description. So Kone can't be categorised as simply a ball winner, as I think he already has the makings of a very good deeper line playmaker, as he has a well developed range of passing capable of receiving the ball in front of the opposition's midfield line and having the vision and technique to ping a driven pass out to the fullbacks on the flanks or in behind the back line for a runner. But not just this, he also has the penetrative passing to thread balls through the lines of the opposition system, which I actually think might be the most valuable asset a young central midfielder can have, as this will enable your team to progress the ball through the centre of the pitch, which I think at the moment is the tactical meta of the current game. Now I have said in previous videos when discussing Adam Wharton specifically that disguise technique that we would see from Sergio Busquets is exactly what young deeper line central midfielders need, as with this disguise technique it makes it incredibly hard for the opposition's midfield line to read where your pass is going, and therefore this will make them less effective at cutting off the pass in behind. Kone hasn't quite mastered this disguise in his technique, as you would expect given that he's only 18, but the vision and the ability to play that sort of pass is there, and so I think long term Kone is not just a ball winner there to break up play, but also a genuine ball progressing threat when he has the ball in deeper areas. Now in terms of his press resistance and his ball carrying specifically, I think this is where United have to get his development right, and this will bring me on to the questions of whether Kone is ready for Manchester United's first team right now, how United could go about developing Kone, and how in the future Ineos could use a multi-club model in order to develop young players like Kone. But first, let's discuss obi-martin, as he is even younger than Kone, just 16, and he's not 17 until November. In the previous video I did on obi-martin, I broke down what type of striker he is in more detail, but for this video, in short, from a stylistic point of view, obi-martin has everything you'd want in a modern day centre forward. Apparently he's only 6'2", but he does look taller than that, and given that he's only 16, he probably gets to maybe 6'3", 6'4", maybe even 6'5". But despite having a rather tall and lanky build already, he still has the necessary agility, ball control, technique, strength, and pace to bully centre-backs even at his age, and looking at strikers such as Erling Haaland, Victor Osimhen, Sesko and Vlahovic, Chido Obi-Martin fits perfectly into that category of striker. He's a mixture between a target man and a poacher, having the pace to also run in behind and down the channels, and that's before we even get to his finishing, which as his goal record in the under-18s Premier League shows, he's as good as anyone we've seen at that age, including Mason Greenwood. If all goes to plan, I think Sekou Kone and Chido Obi-Martin should be developing into key first team players for United, as from watching both players just from the eye test, the raw ability and potential is clearly there. But what about this season and beyond? Well, I think it's a bit too optimistic to expect Kone or Chido Obi-Martin to come into the first team at the moment and make a significant impact. However, considering that they are staying at United, at least until January, I think Ten Hag has to give both some opportunities just to test the waters and see how good they actually are in England and what they do need to develop. But even next season, given their age and their senior football experience, I still think it's a bit of a stretch to expect them to come in and play significant minutes for United in the first team, even though of course it is a possibility. And this is where we come on to what both Sekou Kone and Chido Obi-Martin need to develop, and how if United had a fully functioning multi-club system up and running, it could significantly aid the development of both players. See, I think like Chelsea with Strasbourg in France, United could benefit from having a sister club, I'd guess you'd call it, who they could not only loan the likes of Kone and Chido Obi-Martin to, but also the likes of Alvaro Fernandez, Willy Camboila and Maxi Oyedele as well. I know that United have put in a buyback or sell-on clauses in each of these 3 deals, but to me it just seems like such a waste, because I think Fernandez, Oyedele and Camboila only really need one good season on loan at a decent level European club before they'd be ready to come back and be a part of United's squad, which would not only save United money when it comes to bringing in backup players for squad depth, but it would also significantly increase each player's value. Meaning that rather than bringing in fees under £10 million, United could start selling these academy products for between 15 to 30 million, which would then give us the funds to reinvest appropriately. But I think that Chido Obi-Martin may be a level above even these players, as he's already shown the raw attributes that you would want from a player to come into the United first team as early as this season and not look out of place. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I could definitely see it happening, given that in my eyes his physicality, composure and technical ability when in finishing positions is as good as any other young striker I've seen in world football. Even though Kone is 2 years older than Chido Obi-Martin, I do think he may take a bit longer to develop into a United first team player, as remember he's only played in Africa up until this point, which is why I specified maybe 2 to 3 years before at the age of 20, maybe 21, he's ready to come into the United first team. Even for Chido Obi-Martin, I think 2 to 3 years is probably a reasonable timeline when he's around 18 or 19, though as I've said, that doesn't mean I don't think both players should be given a chance this season. I mean, considering we've got Collier and Eriksson on the bench, I'm expecting Kone to at least get some game time, as his potential is far higher than Collier's in my opinion, who if I'm honest I really can't see developing into anything more than a squad player, though I could see Kone being a starter for United in central midfield within the next 2 to 3 seasons. In the centre forward position with Højlund injured, we only have Xerxes and Wheatley as strikers, and whilst I do rate Wheatley high, I think Chido Obi-Martin's ceiling is a lot higher, even though I do think both players are fairly similar stylistically, and both do have the potential to be United squad players over the next few seasons. I think for at least half or maybe the whole of their first season, keeping them at Manchester United, giving them some minutes in the first team but primarily playing them for the under-21s is probably the best move, just to allow them to settle in and also give the coaching staff a good idea of what sort of players they are. But in terms of next season, I think you send Sekou Kone on loan to a club whose style of play revolves heavily around playing out from the back under pressure, as this is going to force Kone to have to be in positions where he receives the ball with his back to goal under direct pressure, which should allow him to develop his overall press resistance. I can't think of a specific club off the top of my head, but aside maybe mid-table to bottom half of leagues like La Liga, Liga NOS or Eredivisie, with a possession-orientated coach would work well for Kone. Sporting Braga were a team mentioned when it looked like Qatar would take over Manchester United, but there are a number of different teams that Ineos could look to integrate into a multi-club network, but as long as they're kind of around the same sort of level as Strasbourg in France, that's probably around the right level. Ineos do have Nice in Ligue 1, but I think considering that they are competing in Europe, that's probably a level too high, as you want to be sending young players on loan somewhere where they are going to be guaranteed starters most weeks. Now if you do want me to go more in depth in terms of the multi-club model and do a whole video on it, let me know in the comment section below. But one club that I think is massively underrated when it comes to sending young players on loan to is Celtic. Imagine sending one or both of Kone and Chido Obi-Martin on loan to Celtic next season. See, the standard of the Scottish top league is low enough that Kone and Chido Obi-Martin should be able to come in and showcase the full range of their abilities, but it's still got the physicality of the English leagues. And with Celtic specifically, they would also be playing European football and in front of a massive crowd, which should prepare them for the sort of pressure that comes on and off the pitch with playing for Manchester United. For people who think the Scottish League isn't good enough for these two, Ahmad wasn't really even a guaranteed starter for Rangers back in 21-22, so by no means is it guaranteed that both players go to Celtic and instantly start ripping up the league. However, the reason I think Celtic could be a good move for either or both players is that they will be playing in a possession-dominant progressive side under Brendan Rodgers, and I think this would help develop Kone's press resistance as well as Chido Obi-Martin's link play when he drops off from the forward line, and these are the areas I think both players do need to improve on most. So thank you for watching, let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and you can also check out my articles on Patreon, which will be linked in the description and comment section below.